What's going on, everybody? It's Moonshine, the Hillbilly Hellraiser, back with another video. Hope you're all having a good one. Again, I'm doing all right. It's almost gym 30 for me, so I'm getting ready to do that. But first, I decided I was going to do a quick review here. And if you can't tell by the shirt and obviously the title description, I'm doing a review on the new Ghost album, Skeleta. I thought it was kind of appropriate to wear this. I got this 1 year for Christmas or a birthday. I'm not quite sure which. One of my coworkers got it for me. I thought it was pretty cool. It's got the whole the Caligula Roman coin design, and the people that I work with, they were trying to figure out what to get me for Christmas 1 year, and they all were talking amongst themselves, I guess, and they always say like, "Well, I know he likes wrestling and he's into all that devil's music, so I don't know. Do you know any bands that he mentions a lot?" And one of them mentioned Ghost. So yeah, they one of my coworkers went and picked this up for me, and it was cool. I had to explain what Caligula was because of course she didn't know what that was, but very cool stuff. And I like Ghost. Ghost is kind of one of those bands that's a little bit divisive with particularly the extreme metal or underground scene. Uh, a lot of people have really not liked them since the first album, Opus Eponymous, where they had a very merciful fate-like feel to them. They've kind of gone more and slowly into 70s hard rock, kind of like a heavier Blue Oyster Cult, into some synth pop and 80s pop, stuff like that. But overall, if you're a fan of music, I think that Ghost is a good band. They're a solid band. They're a great live act. I've seen them. I didn't get to see them when they opened up for Iron Maiden. Me and a couple of my buddies went to the show, but we started out at a bar and we ended up meeting up with some old wrestling buddies of ours. And we got sitting there having a few drinks, telling some stories. And before we knew it, uh, we got to the venue right in time for Ghost to get off the stage. And my buddy who went with me, I wasn't aware of how big of a Ghost fan he was. So I told him, I said, "Oh, bro, I'm so sorry." I said, "Well, I'll make it up to you." I said, "We'll go hit them up the next time they're in town." And sure enough, they did a headlining show at a place in Clearwater, Florida called the Straz Center. And a very nice, intimate venue. And they did a phenomenal job. It was a really good one. I think that was right around the time they were doing a tour to support the was it prequel or something like that, the one with rats on it. That was the big hit on that one. I wanted to throw this in as an add-on post production because I just thought of it. So when we went to go see Ghost at the Straz Center, and as I'm prone to do, I talk to people. Some of my friends like it, some of my friends hate it, just because, like, why are you bothering people? Can we just go somewhere without you pestering people? But anyhow, I walked up to one of the ushers during I forget when it was. At one point, there was kind of a lull in the activity, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, how does this crowd size up versus some of the other crowds that you've had here?" Because it was a bunch of like the Straz Center is it's a theater, and it's a very like the people who the ushers and a lot of the other people there they're a little bit more like of the sophisticated types, and you had all these like old grannies were ushers and standing there showing people their seats and all that sort of thing. So it was very to have a band like Ghost there, even though for like people like us it's not death metal or black metal or anything like that, but for normal people and particularly women in their 60s and 70s who are just there, probably listening to friggin' Perry Cuomo or whatever the hell that people listen to when you're that age. But they're not accustomed to all that. They're not accustomed to the crazy pope looking guy with all the crazy with the people with the ghoul masks and all that sort of thing, and the upside down crosses and all the occultist imagery and all that. So I asked the lady, I said, how does this crowd stack up as far as rowdiness, craziness, and this, that, and the other thing? And the lady said, "Oh, the people here, they're they're very nice and polite. You know who really gave us a lot of problems was uh, band uh, Tesla. Is that their name?" And I said, "Oh, really?" I just started laughing because I just picture all these friggin' these women showing up to Tesla and all these like just friggin' these dudes and they're my age and a little bit older who are just sitting there getting hammered on friggin' Schlitz and PBR and stuff like that, and they're just showing up to the place. And their friggin' old ladies are flashing the dudes like, "Ah, Jeff, I love you. I tried to bang you on the tour bus back in '89, but you were too busy with my friend." And I just thought that was hilarious. But I figured I just thought of it, and I figured I would share it with you. All right, it's time for me to go rock out with my jock strap not out, but in. No, I don't wear a jock strap, but I am gonna go work out. All right, everyone, take it easy. But very cool band. I doubt many people here are not familiar with Ghost, but it's pretty much basically a one man project. Tobias Forge is the vocalist. He does all the instruments on it. He has some help with a songwriting duo on this particular one. The guys are named Vincent Ponter and Salem Al Fakir, and they are apparently in a band called Vargas and Lagola, which nobody here is gonna like. I listened just to check out what they were all about, and it's not for me. It's pop dreck, but I can see when you hear some of the songs here, and they've helped out in the past with Tobias crafting ghost songs. You can hear those pop elements filtering in, and plus I think with them being from Sweden, they have different sensibilities when it comes to music and just influences, stuff that they like. There just seems to be a lot of that. I mean, even like when you think of Nicky Anderson from Entombed, he's got that band the Helicopters, which sound absolutely nothing like Entombed. He's also in Lucifer, which sounds nothing like Entombed, and they just seem to have a bit more of a, in certain respects, a little bit more open-minded. Some of the musicians, not everybody, but some, and so you get like different influences coming in. And but again, it's more if you're a fan of music and you're not so militant about just listening to heavy metal and underground metal all the time, then there's stuff to enjoy about this. Uh, the cover art here, this is by a guy named Zbigniew Bielik. Gene Walker was produced on it. Dan Malsh and Andy Wallace did the mixing on it. I don't know what studio they, excuse me, I don't know the studio that they recorded this in. It's their sixth studio album. It's 10 tracks, 47 minutes of music. Came out on Lorna Vista Recordings. I don't know if that's their label or it's not a label I'm familiar with. But anyhow, so let's get into some of this. Uh, Starts off with Peacefield. That is a very strong track. It was the second or the third single they put out. It actually just came out the other day, and I really enjoyed it. It's melodic and it's a little bit more poppy. It's not, again, not metal, but it's more hard rocky in the vein of like 70s hard rock stuff like that. Next up was Lacrima. That one was probably the closest to a song that you could find on Opus Eponymous. It definitely had a lot of ritual vibes, particularly with the guitar riffing on it. So that one was a really good one. That was the second single that they put out in the lead up to this album coming out. Um, I guess I should go back and say this comes out on the 25th of April, which is today, Friday. It pre-released last night, so I got to listen to it a few times as I was doing some other uh I was doing some writing projects. Not that you need to know everything, but that's what I was doing. And then I sat here and listened to that and a couple other things. Um, Next up was Satanized. That was the first single and video, and Ghost has this whole lore to him, which in a lot of respects, this is why I can't necessarily get. It's one of those things where it's like a lot of different fandoms where the fans almost kill it for you, but they have this whole, it all kind of like is the whole like art house theater kid kind of thing that just turns me off with certain aspects of certain bands. But there was this whole big thing where, oh, Tobias is going to reveal the new Papa character gimmick of costume version of the vocalist of the band, which is him basically doing like an evil pope kind of thing. And so this one was the video Satanized. Towards the end of it, it was supposed to reveal what is Papa 5 Perpetua is the name of the new version of the vocalist for Ghost, which is Tobias Forge. At this point, he's pretty much, you know, let the cat out of the bag, and everybody's known for years who the vocalist is for the band. Uh, Beyond that, he pretty much for live stuff gets a bunch of hired guns and they play the music. They all dress in the crazy, creepy mask, and yeah, and that's kind of like their stage show. But yeah, the video and the song itself, this was way too poppy for me. I mean, it was almost like I think they kind of went from that Merciful Fate style to almost a Blue Oyster Cult kind of style to just going into all the different more pop and synth and 80s influences. This one kind of delves more into the poppier side of things. It was to the point where I heard it, I was like, man, I don't even give a crap that this album's coming out. If this is what it's going to sound like, then I don't care. But yeah, it almost completely killed any interest I had in this album whatsoever. But Lacrima came out and then Peace Field, and I said, what the hell? I mean, it's it's less than $20 to get the CD. I might as well listen to it, check it out. If I like it, I'll share it with people. And I guess I'm kind of getting ahead of myself as far as oh, Dan, did you like it or didn't you like it? I did. Um, Guiding Lights is next up. That one's kind of a grower. That's got at first I didn't like it, but then I listened to it again and I was like, all right, I can hear I can hear where this one's going to be halfway decent. The next one up was De Profundis Borealis. Now, what's funny is I think it was a Metal Injection. Tobias did an interview where he did a whole breakdown of the album, talking about the songs track by track. And he said that this one kind of it had a black metal feel to it in the sense that just the title of the song. But he knew it wasn't a black metal song, and it certainly is not. It's the verses are decent on it, the music in particular, but the choruses are lame. They're just lame. So it certainly is not a black metal song by any stretch of the imagination. But I do give him credit, whether or not he's doing it for street cred or just trying to seem cool or whatnot, uh, or he's a genuine fan, which I think he is as far as extreme music and stuff like that. He was wearing a Sodom shirt I think it was in the Sign of Evil he might have had on. I could be wrong. But I remember he had a Sodom shirt on. I forget, he had another interview I saw. He was wearing another band's that people be like, oh, okay, he's repping some decent bands here. So, you got to give him a little props for that one. But next up was Cenotaph, and this it's got a lot of very upbeat hooks and rhythms that I think a lot of true Ghost fans, like the diehards, they're really going to eat this song up. but it's not for me. It wasn't for me, but being objective about it, I could say that this is a good song. It's just something that I wasn't personally into. It didn't really do much for me, but I can see if you're a Ghost fan and you're anticipating this album and you can't wait for this album to come out and you hear this song, you're gonna love it. I mean, you'll really enjoy this song. I don't know if it'll wind up on the live set list, but if it does, I can see where this one would be a favorite, a crowd pleaser for fans that who are there to see Ghost, who love Ghost, and who are diehard fans. Um, Next up is Massilia Amori. This one rocks. This was probably my personal favorite song on the album. It has a very 80s hard rock, almost glam metal-y sound to it. I know in the interview that I mentioned earlier, he Tobias was talking about how they had a song on there where he kind of had in his mind's eye, he was thinking to pour some sugar on me, which I know is probably the lamest of Def Leppard songs. But that was kind of like to him, he could see it. He could see like this song's gonna wind up being a song that some stripper is playing in a club somewhere. Which, if this is the song he's talking about, I totally agree. It does have it really really sounds like that, but it's a very very good song. Very well done, arranged, all that sort of good stuff. But I really enjoyed it. I the first time I heard, I was like, all right, this it's not super heavy metal, but I also don't listen entirely to nothing but super heavy metal. I do like to diversify my listening experience occasionally. It kind of breaks up things and keeps things fresh and that sort of thing. But most of you're kind of along the same wavelength as me as far as that sort of stuff goes. So I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And I have to explain myself as far as that goes. But yeah, this is a really good track. I would definitely, if you like that 80s hard rock, almost glam hairband kind of stuff, I would check this song out. Very killer stuff. And yeah, probably my favorite song on the entire album. Next up was Marks of the Evil One. That was a decent one. That was good. Not at the it's not at the higher tier of the stuff that I liked on this album, but it's definitely a very, very good song. I do love the lyrics on it. It's basically talking about the end times and the Antichrist and all the people that are following the Antichrist. So this is kind of one of those weird dichotomies with Ghost where it's very poppy, it's very catchy. A lot of the stuff is you hear the music, and to me this is the sort of stuff that belongs on the radio. And I don't know if how popular as far as rotation on a radio station goes. I don't know how much time Ghost gets on radio stations, but this is the sort of stuff I think belongs on radio. I don't listen to radio, but to me this is the sort of stuff that I would hear, I would think should be on the radio and should be getting promoted. But I don't know if it is or not. But it's just funny to me because you hear the musically and sonically, you hear the stuff, and they're like toe tappers, and you kind of just bop your head along to it. But then you hear the lyrics, you start listening to the lyrics, and it's all talking about the Antichrist and stuff like that. And you're like, holy shit, what's going on here? So it's kind of a weird, to me, not a weird, but it's funny to me because there's like a irony to the fact that it's all kind of like almost happy-go-lucky kind of stuff, and then you actually listen to the lyrics and it's dark, and which that much I appreciate about it. It's kind of fun to that's a metal trait, is to kind of reel people in and then hook them, and next thing you know they're listening to all the dark stuff, the darkness and evil and all that. But next up was Umbra. Umbra it had a good cool guitar to it, but it was mostly lame. I could have I could have done without that one. And then it closed out with Excelsis. That was a nice ballad, very a lighter track, more of like a emotional melodic kind of thing. If I remember correctly, it was more. more kind of dealing with like themes of death and the afterlife and stuff like that. Uh, which is cool. You know, that's again, go back to that interview that I saw where he was talking about, you know, even though he doesn't like to necessarily, I think, dwell on the topics of death and the afterlife and heaven and hell and all sorts of stuff like that. It is stuff that fascinates him, as I'm sure most of us. It's the same thing, you know. We're I think a lot of people who I'm familiar with, or who I'm friendly with, or who I've gotten to know on the internet and all that sort of thing, or through the internet, I should say. I think a lot of us all probably agree that this is all fascinating subject matter and probably stuff that when you're just sitting down, you know, just human nature to think about this sort of stuff. But not all of us are in a popular worldwide touring act where we get to discuss these things on a larger scale and get to share it with the world. But overall, Excelsis, very, very good song, great closer. Um, yeah, I would say it's this made it easy. It's 10 tracks. I would say 7 out of the 10 tracks were very good. Uh, Definitely worth listening to. I would recommend this album. It's a really good album. I was kind of on the fence on how I was going to feel about Ghost because they've gone soft, especially the past couple of albums. And I've listened, you know, I like some of their more melodic stuff, more the more some of their softer stuff. I do enjoy it. I think that Tobias has a phenomenal voice. It's very expressive and he's got great range on it. And the band complements him nicely. The music complements it nicely. So, and the theatrics, they're fine. Like I said, it's not so much the theatrics, it's kind of like some of the people that follow it. I almost think it's like he gets, you know, the band itself gets way too much of that theater kid, art house hipster crowd. And then that kind of kills it for me. You know, it's lots of people who, in a lot of respects, they think they listen to metal because they listen to Ghost, but it's like, dude, you're not really into metal. You like this band, and you think because there's upside down crosses and stuff like that, and they're talking about dark subject matter that you're into metal. You're not into metal. So just stop it. You listen to freaking EDM music in your spare time. You're listening to a bunch of EDM music and gonna wind up at some festival all whacked out on Molly and getting freaking finger blasted by some creep with knuckle tattoos or some shit like that. But anyhow, so overall, I would say Ghost is not extreme music for extreme people. However, if you are a fan of music in general, you just like music, there is a lot to love about this album. There's a lot of killer songs, a lot of killer hooks to them. The vocals are on point. Uh, th- Lots of melodies. You will like Skeleta. I would certainly say at least give it a shot. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy it, and it might not make, you know, and if you do listen to it, it might not make your top 10 list. I mean, there's tons of stuff coming out. I wouldn't consider it album of the year, but it is a strong contender to be in the conversation at this point. So yeah, so that was Ghost. Skeleta came out on Lorna. I was going to say Shore Recordings, but that's not it. Lorna Vista Recordings today, Friday, April the 25th. Go pick it up if you like. Go listen to it if you like, or tell me go pound sand. As far as that goes, this sucks. You're a poser. You know, why am I watching your channel? I don't know. These are all questions you'd have to ask yourself. But anyhow, I'm gonna finish drinking my healthy this looks terrible elixir before I go and go do some gym stuff, go do some cardio. It is the dreaded and most heinous of all days today. It is leg day. So that's always a hoot and a holler. But as always, everyone, take it easy, have a good one. I've been Moonshine. You've hopefully not been bored. Uh, and as always, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin upon impact. And don't forget to breathe. Everyone have a good one. Take it easy. I've got more stuff coming on the way. I might actually, honestly, I might be doing a follow up to last video I did. I did a little, I have the collection update thing that I'm doing. Talked some wrestling, and that got me thinking of some other stuff that I wanted to talk about on top of some WrestleMania, added WrestleMania news and notes and Fallout stuff. But we'll get to that. But yeah, I'm just battling. So while the crap is playing over the screen here, you hear something going on while I'm trying to coerce you and trick you into watching more of my shit. All right, take it easy, everyone. Have a good one. Later.